Well, good evening, everybody. We've got the BroncBuster team here. We also have Lone Star Axles, so we'll get into some introductions here in a minute. But before we do that, Doug and I are going to give you a few updates of some upcoming things that we want to talk about here. And one of them is what, Doug?
Wheeling for a Cause at wheelingforacause.org. Hi, Busters. Thanks for being here with us this evening. Hey, just wanted to remind you, some of you might be new and you're like, what is Wheeling for a Cause? Well, it's raising money for mobility disadvantaged veterans. And we had our inaugural big time event in Texas, Mason, Texas, at Coutincy Rocks in January. It was an awesome event. Everybody had a great time. And so this one's coming around on October 12th through the 15th. That's a Thursday through a Sunday out of Coutincy Rocks. And registration is open for it. If you have an RV, there's 30 amp and 50 amps. They also got some cabins available, as well as the city of Mason. And then they've got unlimited primitive camping. So the weather's probably going to be fantastic. It's anywhere between 51 and 87 degrees. That's the historic average. So it's going to probably be real lovely. If you know Texas, the wind will come up, keep everything moving. It'll be nice. We've got some great things planned. We're really going to focus, taking the feedback from January's event, we're really going to focus some events around the new Bronco owner. And some of us who may not be as experienced as Tyler and some other people with wheeling, maybe we've been through off-rodeo, but now we're like, what's next? I know my vehicle's capable, but I, as a driver, want to become more capable. I want to be able to understand how to call a line, and drive safely and have fun. So we're going to center some events around that. We've got some great food and some great times, and we're lining up some great entertainment. The raffle is a huge thing. We had about $20,000 worth of raffled items. I mean, last year,
some guys made out with some really awesome stuff. And this year's even going to be better. We've had a lot of people reach out.
Yep.
Ted Nugent's volunteering to provide some stuff again for us, which is awesome. A little surprised that he's going to be providing for us that we're looking forward to as well. And lots of stuff.
Pick up your raffle tickets when you register, because you'll be able to get discount packages on them. You'll be able to buy them for cheaper, because, of course, the day of, it's the full price for raffle tickets. So pick them up when you're registering. Just grab everything you need, and you'll be set up. And as we get closer, I'll put more and more information up there. But if you're kind of new, you're not sure what Coutincy Rocks is all about, go to our Q&A page right there at the top of wheelingforacause.org. And if you're not able to make it, that's okay. We still accept donations of any amount. And we also are looking for sponsors as well. So a lot of ways to get involved, a lot of ways to help veterans who are mobility disadvantaged and want to be able to get out and experience the great outdoors with their friends and with their Broncos, just like we all get to enjoy. So we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting. Get your registration in now while you're thinking about it, and we'll be good to go.
Don't wait too long. This is going to be a fun one. So think of this as the super celebration of the South. Everybody's been saying, hey, we need a Super Cell South. This is it. We had a lot last year. We're going to have a lot more this year. And not only do you get to come wheel and have fun, but you get to help generate funds for a good cause. We were able to generate over $30,000 that went to not only just our recipient, TJ Tejaro, but also to
SOML.
So
others may live.
So we were able to benefit some because of your guys' help, and it's a really good cause. So,
and just to update on that, SOML was able to start a brand new program that benefits getting vets reintegrated back into their communities, into society, into jobs. They were able to open that whole program based on your donation. So that's how impactful this kind of event can be. And they've got a lot of better stuff planned. So we're really looking forward to helping them out as well.
So other upcoming events, we're going to be actually heading to the Rubicon in August. Before that, Doug and I, we got a lot of work to do. We got Portal Axles on their way. Coming from Germany. We're going to have 6 Broncos here really in the near future that we'll be able to get a lot of photos and video to you guys showing that. But we've also had a great response. We've got 10 more sets that are in process now in Germany being made with the orders that we have and upcoming. With that, one of our partners in this game is Wild Horse Broncos out of California. So they are going to be selling these as well. So whether you get them from us or whether you get them from the Creoles over there at Wild Horses, great guys. And we got the guy, one of our main guys here in Texas, that's going to be installing them. However, that's not what we come to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about portals, but before we do introductions and go into the real topic, I figured I'd give just a real quick update on BroncBuster Rebuild.
Yep.
So, Justin, why don't you go ahead and just show where we're at? I'm going to talk about it a little bit. We spent most of last weekend. It's kind of a mess still right now. Straightening the frame, getting rid of some of those creases. I've got all of the panels now removed. We were able to get everything straight. You see me right there. I'm welding on the front. We had to rebuild some of the roll cage, some of the A-pillar, and across the windshield header. And then by Saturday, I actually got to do some paint on Saturday. So now don't get too excited. We still have a long ways to go. The guy that's letting me use his shop and kind of training me how to do some of this stuff, he's having me do all the cut-ins. So now that I've got everything mounted, I brought it in here and painted the edges, painted the inside, all the pieces that not going to be able to get to very well. Then we're going to mount it up, and then I got all the prep work, and after that, it's paint the entire vehicle. We're going to repaint all of BroncBuster, but it's been fun. I'm not a paint guy, but I've had a good teacher, and I'm getting a lot of experience with this BroncBuster thing, so it's been fun. Other details that about what we're doing, like I said, the portals coming real soon. We're going to be talking more about that. Now, we're going to move on to what a lot of you guys I know are excited to talk about, and that is what is the difference between IFS and solid axle.
Yep.
So with that, why don't we introduce our guest tonight? We got Eric. Eric, go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are, and where you're from.
I'm Eric O'Sullivan, and I own Lone Star Ring Pinion here in Katy, Texas.
Right.
And
Eric and I got to know each other about a year ago. I think it was right before SEMA, actually. Eric reached out to me, and we got talking about how we can, make the steering thing work, was I think our first conversation. And it's been a relationship where I talk to Eric a lot on different consulting, because Eric is an expert when it comes to, a lot of stuff, but specifically ring and pinion, like his business says, and axles and how to build things right. So, Eric, what do you have behind you there?
That's my 6-gen Bronco. It's a straight axle Bronco.
Have you named it yet?
Huckleberry.
Huckleberry. All right. I'll be your Huckleberry.
And Huckleberry was at Wheeling for a Cause in January, and it was quite impressive to watch Huckleberry go up King of the Hill pretty easily. Yeah. Zip, dee-dee-doo-dah.
So we're going to talk about that as part of this conversation, is how capable this is and then what it's taken to get there. So, Justin, do you have a little clip? I can't remember if you had a clip of there you go. Yeah. So there's Eric on his solid axle Bronco. Now, I often refer to this as one of the only solid axle swapped Broncos, 6-gen Broncos out there. And as far as I've seen, it's the only one that's successfully out wheeling. I mean, I've seen it at SEMA. I've seen a few out on social media, and I know I'm going to offend somebody. I'll get somebody trying to correct me on this, but really, it's one thing to throw a solid axle under there, right, Eric? I mean, anybody can put a solid axle under it, but
we've got it working. So
it's working, right?
It's working.
Yeah. So I guess first off, let's discuss what you gain, what you lose, and what the feasibility is for the average driver. What is your opinion on that?
Well, you gain a lot of wheeling capability, I think, but you lose some road manners.
Yeah,
it drives great. This one is full hydro, which I'm contemplating changing it to a steering box just to make it a little more road friendly on the highway.
Well, and so what is full hydro? So there's some people on here that have no idea what we're talking about when we say full hydro. So can you explain that for just a second?
So basically, it's kind of like a tractor. There's no steering box. It has an orbital valve with 2 hydraulic lines going to a hydraulic ram on the front axle.
Right. And so a disadvantage of full hydraulic, right, is if you lose your pump, what's going to happen if you're going down the highway?
Yeah, you lose steering.
You lose steering. So
that's why we're contemplating go ahead and put this. When we built it, we didn't anticipate driving it much on the street, and it drives great on the street. So
I've ridden with him on it, and we rode on the beach. We've ridden it rides good. It's a nice riding vehicle. So, all right. Well, then what about what's the feasibility? How feasible is it for the guy that says, well, I got this 6-gen Bronco and I want a solid axle swap it? I guess tell us a little bit about the feasibility and some advantages, disadvantages, I guess.
The advantages are you won't break a tie rod, but the the wheeling advantages I think are great.
Yeah.
The road manners are great too, as long as we do it with a steering box, and that's coming next. I just want to do that just to show people that it will go down the highway at 85 or 90. And then we had to relocate the fuel tank to make the rear axle work to keep the drive shaft from hitting the fuel tank. So we 4-linked the rear. The front is a radius arm setup, but it has a disconnect on it. So it's actually off-road. It kind of acts like a 3-link, but the wheel's great. We've been able to make the computer almost 100% happy. We've gotten all the codes out of the computer except for the steering rack. And I'm very, very close of getting that knocked out.
Awesome. So then when you say knocked out, you'll be able to start it up, put it in gear, drive it without lights coming on, without anything, I guess, alert.
No lights. So the only code I have in the computer right now is just a steering assist code. It says steering assist disabled. So it drives fine. I mean, it's not like it's disabling the computer, but it's a little bit of an annoyance still. Yes. What about if you have lane assist or, what about your steering angle and any of that stuff? I mean, if we delete the steering rack, how do we accommodate that? You will not have lane assist. And like on your screen when you're backing up, you won't have your little lines telling you which way you're going. And I think I may have a fix for that, but I'm not 100% sure yet. That's going to be something on the next build that we try.
So aside from that, I guess you've got all the ABS sensors working.
All the ABS is totally out of the computer. We've deleted it from the computer.
Okay, so it's deleted from the computer.
Deleted from the computer.
What about wheel speed?
So wheel speed, right now I'm on 43s and my speedometer is within a mile an hour of being accurate.
Okay. So one of the conversations we had is, what are the, it's always, everybody always talks about the death wobble, right? And you were telling me the other day when we talked that if it's done right, I guess go ahead and tell us, educate us on how you don't have death wobble when you do a solid axle.
So if you set your suspension up correctly, you will not have death wobble. They've been putting straight axles in vehicles since the beginning of time of vehicles, and the death wobble has gotten a bad name because of the Jeep industry. Jeeps are terrible with death wobble. And a lot of that is a wheelbase thing. There's a lot of things that go into the death wobble that causes it, and it's mainly just the components that it's built with.
Okay. So what you're saying is that if you build a Bronco for somebody with your components the way you're going to do it, it will be built in a way that death wobble no longer becomes.
You will not have death wobble.
Okay. So there was a couple other, so I'm kind of pulling for some questions because we put it out there on social media and we wanted everybody's input. And there's a lot of guys that say, well, including myself, I've been one that said this over and over again. So everybody knows that I'm not a big proponent. I'm probably not going to anytime soon put a solid axle underneath BroncBuster or one of my Broncos. But there's a lot of people that want to know.
It is an option.
It is an option, right? And is it a good option? Yeah, it's a good option. And then it's, I guess, the best option. Well, that's up to you. That's up to you to decide. It really comes down to what you're going to do with the vehicle. I mean, if you're going to do a lot of what you see in this picture that Eric's doing, it's a good option, right?
I guess explain for those that maybe are new to this and have never come on, why is a solid axle, when you talk rock crawling, most of the time going to outpace a IFS vehicle? Why is that?
Because you can make a solid axle flex. You can make it do whatever you want it to do, basically. So you can set the suspension up as soft as you like, and you're limited with IFS. You're limited to that CV.
Right.
So you can only make a CV travel so much.
Right.
So you kind of think of it as your rear axle or whatever with the drive shaft. You can only make that drive shaft to go so much of an angle before it binds.
So I'm going to put this in simple terms for everybody to understand that maybe don't understand. IFS is independent front suspension. What that means is, as opposed to a live axle like you see here or a solid axle, independent front suspension means just that. One wheel travels independently of the other. And so that's done through a lot more moving parts, right, Eric? I mean, you have a lot more things that can fail on an independent front suspension, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you have A-arm, upper A-arms, lower A-arms. I mean, there's a lot of bushings up there. You have unit bearings, CV shafts. I mean, there's a lot to fail.
And really two big things to highlight that we talked about a lot, and that's kind of where I'm a proponent of portals, but that's geometry, right? So to let people understand, we all take a new Bronco and we take and throw the same approach we want to with the Jeep and say, let's just throw some lift under it, because you don't really worry so much about geometry on a Jeep, right?
No. Well, yes and no.
Yes and no.
So you still have to keep everything, the geometry correct to make it drive down the road good, but
right.
So you still have casters and cambers and everything you got to get right. But.
Right, that part of the geometry. But when it comes to, when we talk independent front suspension geometry and we talk about that full droop and those CV axle angles and the steering axle or the steering tie rod and what strains it's putting on, there's way more moving components on an independent front suspension. That's kind of one of the downsides, I guess, to independent front suspension, right?
Yes. And they both have their places. So if we lived in the desert, independent suspension would be great, I think,
Yep.
They both have their places where they need to be.
Right. So, I mean, what I've worked on, and so that's why I'm gonna stick with the independent front suspension, because I'm gonna come up with every way to keep, I want to say, all right, I want the best of both worlds, right? I like to rock crawl, I do, and but I want to do it in a way that, I mean, we've already seen what kind of a vehicle can perform very well in rock crawling and win the king of the hammers, and that is still an independent front suspension. It just takes a lot to get there, right?
Yes, it takes a lot to get there.
Right. So, yes, flip side, not having a front pumpkin has saved me from bigger obstacles. That's true. In an independent front suspension, you don't have that front pumpkin to hang up on. So there is an advantage there. I've been on obstacles with independent front suspension and sitting there next to a solid axle Jeep, and the Bronco just performs different. Sometimes it's weird, but it actually performs better in some instances.
Yes.
And no doubt about it, I don't think anybody's going to say that when you take all of the capabilities off-road, fast off-road, highway drivability, all those things together, in my opinion, it's still the best option is to have independent front suspension. My opinion, again, it's left to those that you can look at it any way you want, right?
Yeah.
But it's options. I think the biggest thing is and what we try and bring into this show is the education part of it. Is so key, right? In buying a Bronco or buying a Jeep or buying any off-road vehicle, understanding the pros, the cons of each option is key to understanding what you end up with in the end, right? What you're spending your money on.
Yes. Ultimately, I think we should do a front axle Dana 60 swap with portals.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think all of the above, right? Let's play with it. I think that'd be fun. And I guess if anybody's going to do it, Eric's going to do it with us. So on that note, I'm not putting portals on BroncBuster because I've already Well, at least not for the foreseeable future, because I kind of have already gone down a different path with that one. I've got a Dana 60 in the rear. I've got the Ultimate 44 in the front, which, by the way, I broke my Ultimate 44. Everything's breakable. I mean, you can break a Dana 60. But, you know, what I'm going to do with that is actually Eric's going to be doing a lot of this. As soon as I get done with all the body work that I showed you guys, it's going to be at Eric's for a week or so. Well, tell us a little bit about what you're going to do and why we're going to do it, Eric.
Well, we're going to cut the rear axle up and we're going to 4-link it.
Right.
We're going to get rid of all those factory mounts and do a triangulated 4-link on it.
And what advantage will that give us by 4-linking? For those that
you're going to gain a tremendous amount of flex in the rear.
Okay. So we've talked about this quite a bit, and by relocating it, that's one of the advantages to the body lift that I have on there, because in order for that to relocate and come up, the shock up, we want to still maintain all of our travel and gain some. We're going to be able to cut into that top frame mount and bring it up into the body or closer to the body to still get a lot of travel with that 4-link, right?
Yes, and you'll gain a lot of ground clearance because it won't be hanging below the axle anymore.
Yeah, I mean, because I love my Dana 60, but that's one of the bad things is that rear shock mount is even lower than on the stock, and it's bigger. So that even is one more thing to hang up on. And by doing what we're talking about, we're going to gain, like I said, a lot more clearance and a lot more flex. So in our opinion, I mean, my opinion, and I've consulted a lot with Eric, we're going to make up for a lot of that lack of flex in the front end by gaining it in the rear, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So Eric, I got a question. You were talking about that you felt that it performed fine at highway speeds. You were pretty satisfied with it, and you think you're going to get a little bit more top end out of it with some modifications you're doing here in a little bit. Is that correct?
Yes. So really the only reason I want to put a steering box on it is just I want to do it that way too, because that's the selling point. Because I want to start building these, and then it just makes it safer going down the road. So if you do lose a pump or hydraulic pressure, you can still steer it.
All right. Maybe kind of a dumb question, but do you find any kind of restriction in tight turning, like going into a drive-through or something like that?
It actually turns very, very sharp.
Okay, so really no difference between the IFS,
no difference.
IFS and a SFA.
No, it'll turn just as sharp as my wife has a 2022 Bronco also, and hers is stock. It'll turn just as sharp as hers.
Great to hear. Awesome.
No 43s. It'll turn just as sharp.
Just as sharp. Wow, that's impressive.
That is.
Well, then again, my F450 turns way sharper than any of my vehicles I own. So
yeah. And ultimately, I have the same front axle as your F450.
Right. And so you're going to someday have to teach me on what they do on that front axle on the 450 that makes that turn radius so good. I love it, though. So that's cool.
Pixie dust.
So driving highway speeds, 55, 65, 70, 80, no problems.
No problems at all. In Louisiana, when we was down there, we had to get on I-10 because we stayed on the wrong side of the lake. And so I was running down I-10 75.
So we do have a point Mark Johnson brought up, and there's a lot of people in the country that don't live around the desert for high-speed desert. So to some people, they really don't care about maybe the fast off-road, right? They're more interested in having all of that flex you talk about. So and that's why I think this is an important discussion, because it is knowing that there are options, and knowing, I wanted to introduce you guys to who I feel is the most capable guy that I know personally to be able to make something like that happen. And yes, some of you might say that's a viable option for me. That's what I want to do. What about comfort? So, I mean, you don't have any vibration. It's not rough. It's fairly smooth.
Not rough at all. It's actually smoother than a stock Sasquatch.
Wow.
What do you think accounts for that? Just the
King coilovers.
Yeah, he's got some pretty awesome.
Okay.
So again, it's doing it right. I've had people jump on the show or on the internet and say, "Oh, you can do a solid axle on a Bronco for $10,000 easily." Is that true? Can somebody really go and accomplish what you've done here for $10,000?
No, not even remotely.
Not even
somebody
remotely.
with a cud machine and a weld machine. They could throw some coil springs underneath there. They could hack one together for 10 grand, but it's not going to be right.
Right. So again, it's an option, but let's talk, I guess, about approximate cost. And everybody's got to understand that this is like, you know, you go in and buy in a Bronco, you could buy your base Bronco, or you could buy your top of the line Sasquatch, Badlands, or Wild Track, or whatever. I mean, there's so many options when it comes to doing what Eric's done here, but ballpark to get it close to what you've done here. What do you think that number looks like?
Or what, maybe answer it this way. What's doing it right for the average person? What kind of cost are they looking at?
30 to 50.
Okay.
I mean, 30 will be on the low side, but there's a lot of options in there. I mean, we don't have to use Kings. Don't technically have to 4-link the rear. Don't have to change the fuel tank. There's a lot of options that we can do that you don't have to do the complete build like I did. But I mean, you still got to, if you're going to change the front, you got to change the rear.
Right.
But, I mean, there's a lot of options. So, I mean, basically we can build the rear almost stockish or stock style suspension to where most of it was in the front. You know, they could do it in stages, kind of like, not really stages because you're already doing the rear axle. But they wouldn't have to do a fuel tank and do a true 4-link if they didn't have to. I mean, if they didn't want to.
Okay.
Would that put it below 30 by 5 or 6, or is 30?
No, you'd start around 30.
Gotcha. Okay, and then add on.
Yeah, then add on from there.
Okay.
So Robert said, so basically a base Bronco with the least amount of tech features, that would need to be deleted. I mean, if I understand what Robert's saying correctly, and I believe this as well, if you're going to do this, start with the base model, because why have all those features that you're going to get rid of anyways, like lane assist.
Exactly.
And stuff, because you're going to delete a lot of it. So if this is an option you want to do, then start with that base model.
Yes.
And yeah, so coilovers, having the right suspension can really be the difference between everything, right? The ride quality, to be able to have all of the flex that you want off-road for sure. So then if we start comparing, because you know, again, you're going to be the one that we're going to be sending a lot of people to for. I mean, we're going to have people that are actually sending their Bronco from across country in some instances to come put on portal axles with you too. So,
yes.
You know, talk to us a little bit about. You know, every one of us knows that I'm for the portals, you're more for the solid axle, but yet you have a good knowledge of both. So tell us, in your opinion, what maybe some advantages, disadvantages going both ways would be.
I'm not going to say a lot of the advantages on the portals yet, just because we'll discuss that once we get a set done. Right. So once we get a set of portals done, I mean, it may be a tremendous amount of advantage. But when you get a set done and just, I mean, see roadworthy, because there's a lot of angles and stuff on there that I don't think we're going to have to address anything, but we're just going to have to see what changes once the portal is on there. How it drives, there's a lot of variables in there that may need to be addressed, but we won't know that until we actually get a set on there. But as far as cost wise, they're about roughly the same. Portals are going to be a little cheaper, I think, and you're going to, as far as off road, they should work great. I mean, you're getting a gear reduction, you're getting a lift, you're getting everything all in one, and they should work great. They're strong.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't have to break. You shouldn't be breaking front end parts anymore.
That's important. Nobody likes to break front end parts.
But I know you're kind of. But do you feel like an SFA still would have an advantage over an IFS portal for certain types of crawling or anything like that?
Yes, just because I can keep my tires on the ground easier.
Right. Because you got more flex. Again, we're going to say that
just because it's the flex, you know.
Okay. Right. But now, and that's, I guess, talking about that, knowing or getting them in the hands and doing, you know, seeing how they do go. That's part of why we've done the research we've done and been so critical on who to partner with on this, and went with those that have the most experience by a decade. You know, there's nobody else out there that has the years that Tyvus has in perfecting this, and they perfected on, you know, G-Wagons and on really high end. And that's an important part to put out there is this is not an experimental, never been done before. It's just these are the first ones on the Bronco.
And the portals will have an advantage over a straight axle in a lot of instances just because of ground clearance.
Right.
But it's kind of one of those things, depends on where you're at. You know.
So can you explain that? I mean, of course, I know why there's more ground clearance, but somebody maybe just watching this and not understanding the difference between the solid axle and the portals, why does portals give us more ground clearance?
Because you're moving everything up 5 inches from your wheels up. So basically, if you pictured underneath your Bronco, moving everything straight up without even changing your tire size, I mean, you gain 5 inches of clearance with the same size tires.
Right. So you could have the 35-inch tires gain 5.5 inches, which is actually more than what you gain by putting suspension lift and 40s on an average vehicle, right?
I mean, it might look like you skipped leg day, but
yeah, it's going to look puny with those little tires and all that lift.
Everything goes up 5 inches.
Right. Let's see. So some of the comments that we got out there was, hey, if I wanted a solid front axle, I would have bought a Jeep. What do you think about that?
I don't like Jeeps, so.
See, that's why I like it.
Yeah, I can't say I don't like Jeeps. I have a love-hate relationship with them. I work on 10 or 15 every week.
They're good money, right? You get a lot of business from them.
You get a lot of business from Jeeps. But, you know, Bronco had a straight axle in 1966.
Right.
That's when they started it. And I get that question all the time. They say, well, why'd you put a straight axle in? You're just trying to be like a Jeep. No, I'm an old school Bronco fan. And it's basically kind of set up like an old school Bronco. It's a radius arm front with a live axle.
Let's see. Oh, you know what? There's been some good questions in here. I'm going to kind of go back. I don't want to skip over any of these. Justin, if you see some we missed, maybe pop them up there. There we go. Did you create your own computer system for that car? Or did you have to reverse engineer to make the changes to it?
Kind of reverse engineered, but it's all kind of plug and play. So I've got a real good friend of mine that is a computer genius basically, and we've been able to plug a laptop into it and hack into it and get everything out that we wanted to get out of it. And there'll be more information on that later on, but there's not a lot I want to say about that just yet, but there's a lot of things that can be done with a computer pretty soon.
Yeah. So understand, guys, there's only so much that we are going to, I mean, and I told Eric, we don't want to reveal everything Eric's doing because he's put a lot of time and work into this. And, you know, it's not just to sit down and plug in a computer and type it up and everything works. As you guys know, these computers are very complex and he's put a lot into that. I'm going to go off subject for 2 seconds just to answer Ken. So I don't forget. So Ken, we're going to be in the Rubicon August 9th, I think it is, right?
Somewhere around there.
Anyways,
I don't even know the exact dates.
We're going to be spending some time at Doug's. His family has a condo there at Lake Tahoe too. But yeah, I know you're close in the area, Ken, so you should come meet up with us. But let's see. So there's some other questions I know. Let's see. Poor engine. Our solid axle is a 88 Samurai buggy, 20-inch belly, 109 width, wheelbase, 4-link front and rear, 40-inch sticky Mickeys, and double-ended Ram full hydro. So, yeah, they got a pretty well-built Samurai, which is funny because my first vehicle was a 1988 Suzuki Samurai. So that's what I drove the first time and got my off-road experience in. So I kind of want to see this thing that they have. Yeah, that'd be fun.
That's nice.
IFS, you have to choose your lines more carefully. Solid front axle, you can pretty much point and shoot. To a degree, though. I mean, like we talked about, you've got more clearance in your front end on an IFS, and you got a pumpkin. You gotta make sure you get your tire up on the rock so you're not hanging up your front diff, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that has been addressed.
There you go. So Robert has one concern with portals, and that is potential axle wrap. You want to? I guess you got a pretty good idea of what that could be. Do you have any ideas on how to prevent that?
Yes, that has been addressed. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago with the rear. You won't have the problem in the front, but it is a possibility in the rear, and that has been addressed.
Yeah. So
we'll touch more on that later once we do the portals.
So yeah, we're going to get our hands on it, and we've already talked with Tybus on some things that we want to add to our install, because yeah, we'll go more in depth. But yes, we've addressed that. There's not going to be the axle wrap. So thank you.
Good question.
Is the Bronco platform stout enough for 43-inch tires? I mean, really tough enough. Like I like step over necessity when possible. So tell is your Bronco on with those 43s? Is it stout enough? Is it strong enough?
Yes. It has plenty of power.
Yeah. It's interesting because everybody wants a V8 in these, and I'm not opposed to it. I mean, I love the sound and the feel of a V8, the old time V8, but we got to understand that these new even the 4-cylinder, my 4-cylinder BroncBuster has more juice in it than the 1980s, 1990s Broncos did with a V8, right?
Yes. And it has plenty of power. I can't complain anything with the power, but this one will have a V8 in it.
Yeah. Because why not, right? You gotta get first on that too.
Yeah, we're going to do that in. I think we're going to start that in November.
Right on.
Okay.
I can't wait. So, what are you putting in it? Are you going to reveal that secret, or are you still deciding?
It's going to have a 7.3 Godzilla in it.
Awesome. Oh, you know what? I did miss one. I missed one question on my list here that I thought was too funny not to include because it's kind of a little bit of a jab at me, and I'm good at laughing at myself. So, is it true that it's easier to swap a front axle if you flip the Bronco upside down first?
No.
No, it's not. Okay.
No.
But you can always rub the belly.
You can rub the
I mean, technically it could be. You just do a little body damage.
No.
It's not easier then because this body work project that I took on is kicking my butt. Especially I decided to do it in the hottest part of the summer here in Texas with no AC. And so by the time I get 4 or 5 hours into body work in that shop, that's probably 120 in there. I'm just
we're thinking we're going to avoid this in the future.
Yeah, we'll avoid.
Kind of a one and done.
I'm not a body man either. I hate body work.
We've done enough testing. We've shown you guys everything that can break. Now we're going to go out and have some fun and not roll. So. Anyways, all right. Well, full hydro will eliminate bump steer, not so much wobble. Wobble can be caused by not having your axle at the right degree. 7-degree rake has been a sweet spot for me. So yeah, that's anything you want to add to that, Eric?
No, he's pretty close.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're setting it up, but the 7 degrees is pretty much a magic number.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, shoot, did we miss anybody? No, I think so. So I appreciate Eric coming on. We're gonna have a lot more coming up next week. We're not gonna have a show. That's the 4th of July. We're gonna be hanging out with family, barbecuing. We got church group coming over for breakfast that morning. So we're taking the day off for the 4th of July. We are going to have some good specials coming up in the next day or two for the 4th of July. But I do want to show newest product. I was going to show you at the beginning and I totally forgot. We've talked about it, but I finally have some almost finished product here that Justin's going to pop up for us. And that is the differential tube. So again, we talk IFS, you got a front differential, and that front differential is a weak spot is the CVs and the outboard tube on it. And so what we've developed is a fully billet diff tube that is made out of 6061 aluminum, and it replaces that whole differential tube on that side. It comes already with the needle bearings inside. You'll need to utilize your existing shaft, but the shaft hasn't been a problem as long as that diff tube stays intact. So It's kind of like on the steering rack. We're dealing with a very weak cast aluminum. So huge differences between cast and billet. And you can see right there the difference between the stock one and on the left-hand side and our new billet piece. It's a monster. So promise you're going to break something else before you break that. That is now available. We have the first production run going out right now. And, so if that's something you're thinking about getting, jump in. We're going to try and keep up with production as fast as we can. But as of today, this was taken today, we are now finally able to start putting these out there for you guys. So other updates, I don't have any pictures. It'll come next week because we've been so focused on finishing this one up. But the Bronco hinge is very, very close, and we'll be bringing that out. So if you're wondering what that is, nobody else has it out there right now, but we've developed a hinge that will work with, and this is where I've kind of not been very good explaining in the past. It will work with all versions of aftermarket what is it? The relocate, or not the relocate, but
the door
reinforcements.
Reinforcements, the X-Cross. A lot of them do an X-Cross. It'll work with all of them.
Right. So it's got the same height of profile, so it'll still fit in there, and all your brackets will mount up. The holes are in the same location. The difference is that instead of cast material, it's out of steel. We actually machine these out of steel. The hinge, the pin on the hinge is much stronger. And I've actually, since I've had my whole Bronco tore apart, I've looked at everything else under there, and I believe that we'll easily be able to hold up to a 40-inch tire, spare tire for those of you who want to do it. Now, would I recommend having a 40-inch tire on the back while you go out wheeling? Well, I don't think you'd do that even on a Jeep or anything. It's not a great idea, right?
Yeah, no, I don't carry a spare.
Yeah. I mean, for one thing, it's weight. And when you're trying to rock crawl, every bit of weight matters. Take out what extra weight you don't need. Leave it back at camp. Leave it on the trailer. Undo your spare tire. I mean, you don't ever really rock crawl by yourself anyways. You're out. You shouldn't.
Yep.
If you're out overlanding, yeah, you want to take your spare tire with you overlanding.
Yeah.
But you're out rock crawling, I'd take it off. But as far as driving down the road and having that security and peace of mind that you're not going to break your entire hinge off of your rear tailgate and do other damage, that's where we got you covered on this. So,
well, and another great feature of it, no one else has this. It will not break your tail light when you open up. It has a feature where it will stop.
It's got a limiter in it. It'll limit the door swing. So a lot of you guys have probably experienced or seen that door will oftentimes swing wider than you want.
You got a jerry can or something like that. This will prevent that from happening.
But a lot of new products. I mean, we talked last week about we have the front trail sight lights that are now available. We have both in white and black. The pedal box. We have up on
Unleash the Cougar. You can hear the Cougar in the background.
That pedal box is amazing. In fact, sometimes my wife will be like, all right, I'm driving in the city. I'm going to shut it or tone it down a little bit because I put on that throttle and it just wants to go.
Yep.
Yeah, it gives everybody a little whiplash with her driving. So we got to tone it down sometimes. But no, the pedal box to me does almost as much on that feel of peppiness as the Ford Performance ProCal tool does with tuning your motor. So it's a fun little thing, and those are available. We had a little bit of a delay getting them. These are actually made in Germany as well. And some of our initial orders had a small delay, but I have a whole bunch of these that should be showing up next week. So if that's something you want to jump on, we'll add those to our special this week for the 4th of July.
Mark, yours is coming.
Yes, Mark, yours is left.
You got hiccuped. Sorry.
Yours was one of those hiccups, but it's stripped. Yours is shipping straight from Germany. Everybody else is placing an order. They'll be coming straight from me. I thought I'd have mine sooner. So, and the spare tire relocation mount is coming soon. Unfortunately, my partners that are working on that are also the ones that they're at Texas Fabco that have been very much involved in getting our hardtop done. And so with that, there's been a few delays in, we can only get so many things at a time. Hardtop is in progress. I hope to 2 weeks from now have some updates for you on that. And we've already sat down, made all the tweaks, the changes, given that all to our CAD designer. Now we just got to make that final version. And the biggest piece has always been the hinge. So everything should fall into place pretty fast, but we wanted to be able to have a place to mount the license plate. We wanted to make sure we could utilize the rear camera. We wanted to make sure we had a light on there for the license plate and a light, that third brake light. So we had a lot to incorporate in there to make this perfect, but we're very close. So it's just taken longer than we thought. So it's coming. With that, let's see. Can't seem to find info. Does the Ultimate 44 have the same
size?
Oh, same size RP. The only advantage is ability to change the let's see,
RP to a different ratio in a 32 spline.
Yes.
RP.
What? Okay, Eric. Yes. Yes.
So the Ultimate 44 has the same ring and pinion as the M210 that comes in at factory.
Yes.
The difference is the carrier does accept 32 spline CVs.
Yep.
And the factory one can be geared, but it can only be geared to 529. It's a little tricky to gear, but they can be geared.
It can be geared like you and I talked about. It requires doing a little bit of a modifying of the carrier to fit it to where you have all the proper oiling and stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it can be done on the stock one. The other thing, I guess, to clarify too, is that we will have very soon the ability to sell you the Ultimate 44 in a 29 spline, because some of you guys out there already have your RCV 29 spline CVs and you want to stick with those. That's something that Dana has, but it's not available yet for us to sell. So that's coming up real fast.
And the CVs is something I kind of want to touch on. That
oh, yes.
It's not set in stone yet, but we are trying to develop a CV here also, which would be a 4340 CV. We're going to produce it in a 29 spline first. I know why the CVs are failing now. We've taken them all apart, dissected them. We know what's going on with them, why they're failing. So I'm working with another group of guys that we're trying to develop a CV that we're going to make here in-house.
Awesome.
I don't know an ETA on it or anything yet. We just started all the discussions and trying to figure out if it's something we're going to do or not.
So one of the things that you and I talked great length about, and again, one of the reasons why I'm a proponent of portals, is one of the issues with a CV axle is it's not a one size fits all, right? I mean,
no,
depending on suspension, we might be developing some CVs that are going to depend on your how many inches of lift you have, because if you have an extreme amount of lift and an angle, you're going to need a different CV than the guy that's mostly stock, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that'll be something that can be addressed with. We can do different shaft lengths for different length CVs.
And I get people asking me regularly about the fuel tank. Well, if you guys don't know, the rear fuel tank is something that Eric put together, and we're going to be working on having as a product also. It's just been more time because we got to do a new harness for the fuel pump and all that, right?
Yeah, that's where we're at now with the fuel tank. I can produce a fuel tank for anybody right now. The only thing is I've only been doing them in-house for one-offs for people, just because of the wiring issue. I haven't been able to get that mass produced yet, or not mass produced, just have that produced where it's a plug and play, where somebody could do it yourself or could do it as far as putting it in. So right now I'm selling them, but I'm only selling them as installed.
Right. So it's a little bit pricier right now because it's just one at a time. Eventually we want to try and have that to where we can sell it as a kit, right?
Yes, I'm fixing to produce probably at least 5 of them here in the next month or so.
Right. Cool. So we have one question on the CVs you're working on. Will there be a different unit bearing with the larger splines as well?
Same unit bearing.
Okay.
So it'll be a bolt-in CV.
And now Ron Jacobson was with me on Pritchett Canyon when I decided to take my CVs out because I broke my front ring and pinion. My front ring and pinion, for my drive unit is sitting right next to you there, isn't it? Ready for you to rebuild it? Okay. So he wants to know what broke on it.
The ring gear broke. The teeth on the ring gear.
Right. Pretty easy fix. By the way, the parts came in today for that. I have all the parts to give you now to rebuild that.
Okay.
So anyways, I've been waiting on all my stuff to rebuild my front ring and pinion, and I'm sending everything to Eric, and he's going to be doing a lot of stuff on BroncBuster.
I think the other parts I ordered shipped today too.
Well, I'll keep these for the next time we break it then. It's no big deal. I waited a while and finally got them. But all right, well, and then on the tank, we actually increased. Didn't we decide that it increased the capacity by about?
It was very, very close. I don't remember the stock capacity, but the tank we're building is 21.5 gallons or 22 gallons.
Yeah, I think I can get 22 in mine when I run it completely out.
Yeah, I think mine's 21, 22 in stock.
So it's about the same.
It's real similar to stock size.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that came up was for the overlanding group, keeping your stock tank and adding another tank in the back, right?
Ooh, I like that.
I am actually working on that for another customer right now, and I'm trying to come up with how I'm going to make it safe. So the tank itself is safe, but he wants to use it as a tank to fill his normal tank. So we can't gravity feed it. That would be the easiest way to make it safe. But being the same level, it's got to be pumped in there. So we don't want to overfill that tank and make gas come out. So we have to have something safety-wise in there so it can only fill it so far, then the pump will shut off.
Okay.
Some kind of limiter.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to come up with for him. That way that it is a lot of it. I mean, most people just want to put a toggle switch on it and do it themselves, but it's not safe because if you're driving down the road and you flip it and your favorite song comes on and you start singing on the radio, next thing you know, you got gas pouring out the back of your truck.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then that's safety, liability.
What kind of added capacity are you looking at?
It would add 21 gallons to it.
You double your capacity.
You're doubling your fuel capacity.
You're going to add a lot of weight, but also what I noticed, what I gained advantage-wise on BroncBuster by moving the tank to the back, I gained some clearance. I lost in weight in the front. So I already have a 2.3 liter, very lightweight vehicle. I'm literally going to go back to what I was doing almost day one with BroncBuster, and that is when I'm going to go do some rock crawling with that light front end, I'm going to start putting water back in the wheels again. So it is a very effective way of making that front end more planted, especially on an IFS vehicle.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, let's see. Oh, I think we answered everything, right? Yeah.
I want 42 gallons just so I can get to Hurricane without having to stop so gosh darn much.
No, having extra capacity for those, I think that's going to be another thing to explore. There's going to be people that want to go overlanding and not have to carry all these extra cans, and so
yep.
That'll be a great thing. So. Is there going to be a bolt-on portal for the ultimate Dana 60 Bronco semi-float axle? Not 100% sure what would all have to change, but for sure the float axles. Okay, yes. Thank you, Justin. I forgot about this question that came up. Yes, there is going to be an option. In fact, Eric and I talked about this. We probably will do some prototyping on BroncBuster at some point. It really is going to just come down to the front axles. I could put portals on the front tomorrow once I got them, right?
Yes.
Dana 60 in the rear is just going to be a different axle shaft. And that's something that really won't take a lot of R&D to figure out, right?
Yeah, no, it's not going to take much at all. It'll take me 2 weeks to have an axle shaft in production in here for the rear.
Right.
So
that's something, yes, to answer those guys that maybe are on from the forums on 6G. If you're wanting to go with the Dana 60, hey, that becomes a very built rig with the Dana 60, the Ultimate 44, 32 spline in the front. You're really going to have something that compete heavy out there for sure without breaking, right?
Yes.
Now, on that same note, we talked about And then I'll go to this question. Now, you're fine. Just a second, though. We also talked about the fact that, in our opinion, we're going to be able to put this setup on a stock non-Sasquatch M190 Bronco with just a Dana 44 in the rear, and be fairly comparable to the Ultimate 44 in the front and a Dana 60 in the rear as far as what we've taken the strain off of and the ability to do stuff, right? Would you still agree on that?
That is correct.
Yeah.
The only problem is the M190 is very, very hard to put a locker in.
Yeah.
It is doable, but it's I don't know that it'd be cost effective.
Which is one thing that I'm glad we brought up, because that's one thing I wanted to talk. We told you guys last week we were going to go try it. Eric and I, about 4 or 5 days ago, we took one apart completely. I took an M190 that I bought off a guy. We disassembled it. It is possible to put a locker in an M190, but we would tell you, like he said, it's not cost effective. You're going to be much better off to just buy an M210 and wire in. It's not hard to wire in a switch for the lockers, and you can do a front axle disconnect. Reprogramming it if you have. In fact, I did that this last week for the first time with the ProCal tool. You literally go into all-wheel drive relearn, and you go through a 2-minute process, and it relearns, and then it kicks that code out of the computer, and you no longer have to deal with the front axle disconnect. So that's easy, right? But Eric and I determined that, can we do it? Yes. Is it economical?
It can absolutely be done, but I don't know that it would be economical.
Right. Sorry, my computer went crazy on me there. So with that, a lot of things we're still experimenting with, playing with, and we hope to be able to have more details for you here in the near future. The one we're most excited about is Portal Axles, and we will be going and bringing that to you here real soon. Again, next week we will not have a show, but join us the following week. We're going to have a lot more fun content. Hopefully we'll be able to reveal a lot more in that 2 weeks. A lot happens in the BroncBuster world in 2 weeks. So yeah. With that, we will talk soon, and thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.